We're back. It's been a hot minute since we've actually done this bit, but welcome on in, Outlap F1 Nation. This is season 6. This is episode 38 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 United States GP race preview show. You've got Andy, and sadly, he's not beside me, but I'm with Cody tonight, who is here in spirit, but not in actual person, as we've said before. He's getting married, and he has to save for that because he's going to go do something really fun. He's flying to New Zealand in December, which is an amazing trip that you're only going to be able to do once in a lifetime. And there's always next year's F1 calendar, and we're going to have lots of good adventures in the near future, I'm sure. But Cody, it is good to see you. I'm missing you that you're not here with me, obviously, but how's it going otherwise?
I'm doing really well. I'm missing being there. As you said, it's just not really in the cards this year. And as we've discussed, the prices of everything Formula One in the U.S. just keep seeming to go up and up and up and up. So taking a year off, but definitely looking forward to a good race nonetheless, and hope you really enjoy yourself down there. And glad to be back after another not summer break, but pretty much the same. It's been 3 weeks off, and really ready for this to get going again. And now it's going to be just like one after another.
Yeah, I mean, and boy, do we have a jam-packed show, because there was a lot that happened in that 3 weeks. And then everybody got back together. Today was really the first day that all the teams were in the same place again. And there's controversy, and there's accusations, and there's all sorts of teams agreeing to not do things. So we're going to get into all of that in just a little bit. But if you found our show, welcome along. We're glad that you're here. You can find us, as always, on Twitter or X. We're there. We put stuff on. I was at the track walk earlier today. I posted a whole bunch of pictures, found some very interesting characters who I met in that track walk, who I was in line with and had some really good discussions with. So it's been, the whole atmosphere is up and running for sure. But Twitter or X, that's where you can find all that stuff. Instagram, occasionally I will post a couple pictures on there. Discord, Reddit, and of course YouTube at Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you are seeing, as you can see, we don't have the lovely horses like we did last year. We have Myrtle the cow. I'm just calling her Myrtle the cow. She's in a field. She loves it. But if you enjoy seeing stuff like that, you can leave us a like, or do as the kids do and smash the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. If you're on your favorite podcasting app, a 5-star review actually helps us out quite a bit. Helps us come up a little bit more in search results. Helps us get our content to you that much quicker. Apple Podcasts or Spotify are our main channels for that, but we're on a whole bunch of other platforms as well. You can email the show, as always, chat now at outlapf1.com. Outlap F1 Nation, who I have been out and actually meeting with in person form. I'm probably going to run into Kevin Kelly at some point this weekend. And I've run into a couple other people, so it's all really fun. So thank you so much to everybody who continues to support the show, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, the aforementioned Kevin Kelly, Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to become a member of that hashtag Outlap F1 Nation, we put a link in our show notes. It's our anchor page, $1, $5. All goes into investing in equipment to make stuff like this possible, as I'm broadcasting tonight from my hotel room, or upgrading equipment we already have to make everything run a little smoother. Helps us try to make the experience better for you, the listener. That's why we're here. Last bit before we hop into all of this fun news, 20% off and free shipping from the good folks at Manscaped. That code is OUTLAP, OUTLAP, all one word. We're proud to bring that offer to you as always. You can check out their lovely span of product if you are so inclined. All right. So the first thing that happened, not a huge surprise. We knew it was about to happen right at the end of the Singapore Grand Prix weekend, but it is now official. Daniel Ricciardo is out of the car at VCARB, replaced by Liam Lawson, who is at COTA this weekend. I actually found they had the sign. They actually spelled it right, and had Liam Lawson's name on there at VCARB. while I was walking up and down the pit lane today. But yeah, I mean, this is just kind of a bummer of a story. I feel really bad for Liam because this is his best shot to really try to make a name for himself. But he's, it's coming off. One, you don't have Daniel Ricciardo here, which is just sad. And two, it is kind of the end, a not great end to what had been up till the last couple of years, a pretty darn strong career.
Yeah, it is a bit of an unceremonious end. There has been a lot of pushback from fans as to how his probable end of time in Formula One has gone. A lot of folks were hoping he'd go out with a bit of a bigger bang, and instead it kind of went out with a whimper. I think he knew during the Singapore Grand Prix weekend that it was going to be ending, and I think pretty much all the fans and commentators knew as well, and yet no one made it official until pretty much right after the Singapore Grand Prix weekend that he was in fact done and that Liam Lawson was going to be taking over. And it is disappointing for someone like Daniel Ricciardo, who has been a big character and a very popular driver in Formula One since he joined the sport. It is a little disappointing to see him go out that way. However, I'm sure we will still see more of him in the future. He is out of the race seat, but he is still going to probably be very much involved in Formula One going forward. I am a little disappointed that we're not going to see, like Daniel Ricciardo America show this time around with the handlebar mustache and the cowboy hat and boots. That always cracks me up. So, gonna miss seeing him around every weekend on the track, but I do think the writing has been on the wall for a little while that his performance has not been quite up to what they were expecting him to do there at VCARB. It is kind of strange to think how we've gone from wondering if Daniel Ricciardo was going to be making his way back to the Red Bull proper seat, and how it's gone from wondering about that to now him being back out of a seat entirely. It's crazy how quickly things can change.
And that is the nature of Formula One. You blink and you might just miss it. And yeah, I mean, it's just it is what it is. And there really isn't anything more I can really say about it other than I think it just sucks that he's not here. I would have loved to have seen whatever antics he had planned for this race, whether he was coming in on a horse or going out on a horse as he was going to leave. I don't know, whatever. But whatever it would have been, maybe there wasn't a horse involved whatsoever, but whatever it would have been, it probably would have been funny as hell. And it would have added to the culture and the uniqueness of this weekend as an F1 show. So sorry that he's not here. I wish him well. I do think I don't think we're done seeing him. I think there are other forms of racing that he's going to pursue, and you never know what you never know. We've seen drivers leave and then come back before. And so
like Daniel Ricciardo.
Like Daniel Ricciardo. Like, you never know when that, weird things are going to happen. But the situation at Red Bull, the driver situation it's been that merry-go-round. You're definitely seeing, there's been a whole lot of stuff said about it kind of in the post-mortem of this, since this happened about the Thursday after the Singapore Grand Prix. And there was reporting that Christian Horner said he could have been out of the car as early as Spain this year, but it was Horner that kept him in the car, and Helmut Marko really wants him out of the car. So, whatever. The decision's made. It's over with. We all just kind of have to kind of move on as a fan base. But, it's just there's only so many seats, and there's lots of good talent in that Red Bull Academy. And now it's on Liam Lawson. Hey, kid, here's your shot. It sucks that you've got like a 6-week trial run, but he's got to try to get in. And VCARB actually need the points. So there is an argument that can be made that VCARB's trying to get maybe potentially 6th in the constructors. So that's a big deal for that team. So I do understand the move, but, like I said, it just kind of is what it is. But anyway, we'll leave that there and wish Daniel nothing but the best. Okay, the next story that broke over the course of this mini break, Renault is going to shut down its engine program. This is not a surprise. We knew that this kind of was coming. They've hinted at it. They were evaluating. They had the striking workers that apparently had the meeting, and Renault didn't care. He basically said, we're still going to shut down the engines. They look to be picking up Mercedes engines going into the 2026 rules package. And now all of those former employees are getting hired at all different sorts of places, including Red Bull, McLaren have picked up a couple, Ferrari have picked up a couple. So it looks like at least the employees are going to find homes, which is the most important thing. But again, it feels like more weird Alpine management. And I feel like we've said this quite a bit about this story. But Cody, any big thoughts on it?
I think it's taking the Alpine weird management to the next level, because you have the Renault, effectively, the Renault works team now going to run without a Renault engine, which just seems very, very strange. I understand that they don't really want to invest in the new engine regulations that much. It's going to be a very expensive package still. It's going to be less complex, as we've discussed before, than the current system, taking out some things like the MGUH, but it's going to have a larger focus on power produced by the electric side. But they are not wanting to invest that money at this time. And despite the protests of their employees, they are going to shut it down anyway. And I am happy to hear that they are finding work other places in the F1 world. I'm sure anyone who doesn't find a place at another team will still find a happy home somewhere, because it's a very talented group of individuals. But it is a bit of a shame. The whole point of these new regulations was to draw in more competitors and more engine producers, and now you have one of them leaving. So it's like, is it working as intended? I'm not really sure.
And should we really change what is now a really working formula that has 7 potential different drivers showing up every weekend with the idea to win? Well, we're going to keep plugging along. And it's interesting. There were a couple of late-breaking stories, but one of the things that wasn't in this FIA technical group meeting, they didn't rubber stamp the 2026 regs. And we're in October of 2024. And teams are supposed to be allowed to start working on the 2026 cars as of January 1. So you got 2 months. You got to rubber stamp this at some point, or we got to push to another year. So this is a brewing Manon story that I don't think anybody's really talking about yet, but watch this space, because I have a funny feeling it's going to come to a head, and it's going to come to a head fast. And Renault, and this is one of the reasons why.
It would not be the first time that Formula One regulations have been delayed for one reason or another. I think it would probably be pretty frustrating to those new people coming in, like Audi with their new engine and whatnot.
And Ford.
It would be frustrating to delay those regs a year. Would it be the worst thing ever? Maybe not. Let you refine things a little more. Let you continue under the existing regulations, which are now proving to be more competitive. I don't know. Maybe just scrap it entirely and say F you to Audi and make it, naturally aspirated V8s again. Who the hell knows?
Well, that's a dream. I don't see that happening. It would take someone would have to come in and basically buy the series out from under Liberty at this point. I think they have that happen, and I don't see that scenario working. Although I'm a fan, I'm telling you, I'd be a fan of that. But speaking of people who are trying to get into F1, the Andretti Global saga took quite a bit of a turn over the course of our little mini break here, with the resignation of Michael Andretti, who is stepping down from a direct leadership role at Andretti Global. Dan Torres, I think I'm saying that right, who's had an ownership stake and is also the owner of Gainbridge, which is the bank behind all of the Andretti Global effort, is going to basically run the day-to-day. Michael is still going to be involved in the company, but he doesn't want to do this day-to-day. He's basically said, look, I'm 62. Running a company from the ground up in 3 different race series is a lot of work, and he probably doesn't want to work that hard anymore. And I quite honestly can't disagree with him, if I'm being quite honest. It does a couple things, because now, if Michael was the holdup, does now the Andretti Global position in terms of both the FIA and now FOM get reevaluated? Does it look better? I've not seen any response on the FOM part of it. But again, anything F1, if you talk to anybody at Andretti Global, all they tell you is our work continues, air quote, at pace. So We had this happen. It might turn into something big maybe in a few months, but for right now, it's really nothing more than really, I think, an Andretti internal story.
Yeah, it is very strange how we've been thinking Andretti is in a position of will they, won't they for F1 for a little while now, and now the face of the Andretti global company, Michael Andretti, celebrated successful racer, dead serious on getting into F1 for a couple years now, is now stepping out of that day-to-day role. It does seem a little weird and makes you wonder, is that going to take the wind out of the sail of the F1 prospect? But as you said, they continue to say they're still working on it. They're still investing lots of money. Cadillac is still on board. I don't think the Andretti F1 dream is over. I think things might look a little different going forward now that he is not going to be in charge of the day-to-day operations. But it's not like he's handing it over to someone who hasn't been involved. As you said, Torres has been invested in Andretti Global for, I think, at least a couple of years now. So it's someone who's been involved, who has been, along for this ride that Andretti is on, trying to get into F1. And maybe it doesn't end up being the worst thing, because I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it was his kind of guns blazing approach to getting in. Maybe it's his getting the American government involved side of things. But F1 doesn't really seem to be a big fan of Michael Andretti personally. And so if he is stepping out of the direct leadership of this, maybe that actually helps their case in some way, which is a little disappointing that it would come to that. But maybe he knows that too, and maybe he thinks that he just wants us to succeed, even if he's not, directly in the driver's seat, so to speak. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you think as long as the name would stay the same, and I would have no reason to believe that they would ever want to change it from Andretti Global.
So bad if they did.
No way. That I don't see that happening at all. He's still going to get the credit for basically getting it across the line when it eventually happens. Now, I think they're really going to look at them in 2028. This Renault story now happening now opens the door for a new OEM to want to come in. And, hey, now we have an extra spot, and you would solve a lot of our logistical problems in terms of engine supply and all this other stuff that we've now gotten ourselves into with one less engine supplier in the pool. So there are lots of opportunities, I think, for this to work later on down the line. It just also seemed to me that Stefano Domenicali and Michael Andretti were oil and water. Whenever they tried to sit down and talk, it didn't go well for whatever reason. Either Michael was too American for Domenicali, or Domenicali was too Italian for Michael. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, they did not get along with each other at all. So you take now one of those issues out of it, and now you reevaluate what's still, in my view, a pretty darn good bid. So I do think this is, believe it or not, a positive in the overall Andretti Global story in terms of F1. Now, what it's going to do to IndyCar, what it does to Colton Herta, what it does to, all the other aspects of this, I don't know. We'll have to see. But I do think, at least, again, from the perspective of F1, which is what we're kind of focused on, I do think this is overall going to be a positive. GM has basically continued to say we're only coming in with Andretti, so that card is still been played the way that it is. And I think Torres, who's known as a business guy, can talk business with Domenicali and say, look, rising tides raise all boats, and hopefully can make that point better than Michael ever could, maybe. So we'll see. We will continue to follow, and if anything breaks, we'll obviously bring it to you. All right, the next big get, believe it or not, our sole now American F1 team that is still there, Haas F1, actually made a pretty big score over this mini break. Toyota Gazoo Racing, you may remember them from WEC and Le Mans fame as they dominated the LMP1 class until it was no more. They are going to have a technical partnership. There is Toyota branding on the Haas car as of now. I went and saw it, so I can verify that it's there. You will see not only a technical collaboration, but also plans to run an actual simulator, which apparently Haas never had a simulator. That I think is the biggest thing that I got out of all this. Haas never had one. Now they get one.
So the Ferrari one.
Yeah. So now they're actually going to have their own. They're going to get a lot of technical know-how from already a established racing mark. And so I think this is a really good get for Haas. It's a way to get Toyota branding back into F1. And does Toyota now, with Renault dropping out, become a potential play for either an engine supply or to come in as a full OEM later down the line? Interesting times.
It is. Now, Toyota hasn't committed to anything like that right now. And for the moment, it is just a partnership between Haas and Toyota Gazoo Racing, which is, a subsidiary of Toyota. But what they are doing is kind of the Haas flavor of connections, where they're in a way outsourcing some of, or I guess in this case, bringing in some more personnel to help them out. Haas has, over their existence in Formula One, they've taken a lot of parts from Ferrari. They've had a lot of the car designed by Dallara, and now they're going to be utilizing the technical and personnel resources from Toyota Gazoo to help them further develop. And as you said, they're going to be working with Toyota Gazoo to bring in a simulator at Haas so that they've got more time and direct hands-on use of that simulator, because up until now they've been using the Ferrari simulator, and I'm sure the Ferrari simulator is state-of-the-art, but it's not located in the same place where Haas runs most of their day-to-day, and I'm sure the time that they have to use that is limited, so this only gives them more control over their destiny. And I think this is a fantastic thing. We give Haas a lot of grief for perhaps not investing as much as they should in Formula One. They seem to have been just happy, kind of trundling along and being kind of near the back of the grid. They've been a little bit more successful lately, but they've never been like a true strong midfield contender. And I think this is a great show that maybe they are to be taken a little bit more seriously. Toyota Gazoo is like very successful, nothing to slouch at, as you said, extremely successful in the World Endurance Championship. Many Le Mans wins, many very successful drivers have been there, so they know what they're doing, and I'm sure that it will only help Haas.
Yeah, Oliver Behrman has walked into now a pretty darn good situation that he's going to find himself in next year. So, it's good timing is what I would say to that. But I totally agree. I think this is a win-win on both ends. Toyota gets to put their foot in the door and see what the F1 landscape looks at. Really take a look at the current environment, what works, what doesn't, and decide for themselves if they want to push an F1 presence any more than what they already are doing. And Haas get a whole lot of extra technical expertise that they never would have had access to. The Ferrari partnership is still going to continue. Io Korematsu has made that pretty much clear, but where Ferrari now would drop off, Toyota Gazoo can now kind of come in and help them out. And there's no cost to this because Gene Haas doesn't have to spend an extra cent. So, of course, he's on board with something like this. So it's literally doing more with less. So it is a win on both sides, and we shall see. I don't think you're going to see immediate things. You're probably not going to see any change this year because that car is pretty much done, but maybe even starting next year. Maybe you'll see some new upgrade packages come forward a little bit sooner on a team that's used to not getting very many cracks at the upgrade, tree there. So, I think this is a great story. Good on Haas. That's creative stuff. That's, when Io came in, I said, he strikes me as young and hungry, and that's what a young and hungry leader does. So kudos to Haas for scoring Toyota Gazoo. I like it. All right. So we talked a little bit earlier about what wasn't in the FIA's final meeting. One thing that was And this was a bit of a surprise. I did not expect to wake up and find this one because we really only had a couple instances where we really didn't like this. But that point for fastest lap that was such a controversy in Singapore? Well, guess what? That SO thing is gone. That whole thing is no more. F1 is going to drop the entire concept of the fastest lap point starting next season. So 2025, so the last race in Abu Dhabi will be the last time you'll see anybody dive in for a set of soft tires to go set the fastest lap point. If the championship comes down to something like that, we'll definitely be happy about this rule going away. Let's put it down to that. But yeah, no more fastest lap point at all. No talk of them opening up that point to anybody not in the top 10. They didn't even want to bother with it. They just said, hey, we'll scrap the whole thing. Cody, what's your thought?
It's kind of weird. I actually kind of liked that Formula One was dipping their toes into the non-position bonus points. And we see that a lot in other racing series, even just the junior Formula series. Like in junior Formula, F2, F3, you got a couple points for pole position. You got fastest lap point. You got, obviously Formula One still has sprint race points. But you look over at IndyCar, they've got even more going on. They got pole points. They got, you let a lap, you get a point. You lead the most laps, you get even more points. And I think that those type of points are a good thing to have in the sport, because it allows you to, for instance, if you've been leading most of the race and something happens and you end up, falling out of the win, you still get those points for having led most of the race, which is a big performance in itself. So I'm a big fan of those type of points, but they don't work as well in Formula One, I feel, because it's not a spec series. So, for instance, you're probably never going to see points awarded for pole position in Formula One, because a lot of times it happens where one team is going to get all the poles. And I guess you can make the argument that when that's happening, one team is probably getting all the wins too. But it's just going to open that gap up even more. So that's a product of Formula One not being a spec series. And you could say the same thing about leading the most laps. It's all going to fall into that. And it's just going to open up that gap between the best team and everyone else when there is a dominant team. The fastest lap one was kind of the last bastion, I think, because we see under the current regulations where, you go faster as you get further into the race, but teams are trying to preserve their tires because of the really high degradation Pirelli tires. You see a bigger mix-up in who's getting that fastest lap point. It's not always going to the front-running teams, and a lot of teams can try to vie for that fastest lap point by, as you described, coming into the pits at the end of the race and getting a new set of softs and gunning for that fastest lap. But I think it kind of falls apart a little bit because you've got situations where you can take away that point from the leaders, even if you're not going to be getting that point, since it only goes to you if you finish in the top 10. And I think maybe Formula One was just worried about the games that could be played there. The going for the fastest lap as just like something that you can do if you're not, even really in the race, I'm not going to get the point anyway, but I'll just go for a glory run at the end of the race because I'm at the back and I can put on softs and it's not going to change anything. I kind of see where they're coming from, and yeah, I can kind of see where the bonus points thing doesn't really work as much in Formula One.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what Carlos Sainz said about this when he was asked about it in the driver's presser earlier today. He basically said, look, it's really, it's a point for whoever has the opportunity to make that pit stop, because not everybody gets the same opportunity depending on where the track position is in the course of a race. He was more of a fan of trying to do it for pole position, but I think you make a good point that says, well, if you've got a dominant car, which we have many times in Formula One, like right now with 7 different drivers potentially maybe taking pole position, that makes total sense to me. But that may not be the case in a couple of years if you get, one team that's way out in front and now they're scoring the extra point, and now you've completely defeated the whole purpose of the extra point. So to me, and the other thing you can't do, you don't want to open it up to people in the bottom of the grid, because I've seen races like this. There was a Formula E race. I think it came down. It was a championship decider, and one of the championship protagonists crashed early, like he spun, but he kept the car going. And all he did the entire race was he'd come in, he'd throw on a new set of tires, he'd try to go out and set a fast lap, because that was the only point he could have potentially even gotten. He didn't win the championship anyway. It didn't matter. I don't think he even got the fastest lap at the end, as it turned out, because his car finally broke. But you don't want to see, there is an inherent danger to any pit stop. So I don't think we want to be encouraging people to do crazy pit stops. I thought when I first heard about this, I'm like, well, maybe they could do it for the fastest pit stop. No, I don't want to do that, because then people will get stupid about that and someone will get hurt. So we don't want to have that. So I quickly dismissed that idea. So I think it's just fine. I think when you said it pretty good. F1 is not a spec series. So you give the most points to the people who win the races. That's where the point scale is slid. You take those fastest lap points out of the equation, and now everybody's math gets a little bit more simple. Everybody knows what they have to do a little bit more, and you don't have someone's floor getting ripped out from under them for something that they really didn't have any control over. Regardless of whether, again, I don't think there was any collusion between Red Bull and VCARB doing the thing what they did in Singapore. I think that was Danny Rick coming in saying, it's my last freaking race, and I'm going to go out with a bang. Fine. But that shouldn't have, in my opinion, a championship connotation. If they still want to list the fastest lap and who got it at the end, that's good enough for me. I'm fine with this move. I think it's a bit of a harsh reaction to that one instance of it really being a controversy, or even if you want to call it controversy. But, I guess here we are. This is the environment we live in now, where I guess one was too much and bye-bye fastest lap point. So, oh well.
At least Daniel Ricciardo can go out knowing that he destroyed the fastest lap point.
And he has the Singapore track record. So next year, when we do our preview for the Singapore Grand Prix, the lap record is Daniel Ricciardo, and that's when he'll get mentioned. That's what he did it for. He didn't do it to try to hurt Lando Norris or to do any of that other stuff. So, let's put the tinfoil off. Take the tinfoil off, and let's think about things realistically. And speaking of tinfoil and controversy, all right, we've gone about this far enough. This is probably now the opening topic of this weekend, which came out in an article in Autosport yesterday about there was some clamoring to the FIA that there was a suspected team, and we'll talk about who that suspected team is because they've come out and admitted it, saying that there was a trick related to the front bib, which affects the ride height of the car. So that there was a device that you could use that could adjust the front bib between qualifying, where the ride height would be at one level, and then the race, where it would be at a different level. And a lot of different teams were approaching the FIA, and the FIA's stance was, okay, we're not aware of any issues with this, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a bunch of seals on where this ride height could be adjusted. And if anybody adjusts it, it's going to break the seal. And then we're going to find out if there's anybody doing it. And that was where we were at the end of yesterday. Fast forward to today, and then there was a lot of speculation as to who the team is. So, of course, we've got McLaren and Red Bull 1-2 in the constructors, McLaren, Red Bull 1-2 in the drivers. So half the world said it was McLaren that was doing it. Half the world said it was Red Bull that was doing it. It has now been admitted to by Red Bull that they were the ones that have a device that could do this. But what they are saying, what they were doing with it was, yeah, we can adjust it. But once we assemble the car and put it into Parc Fermé, where you would make that adjustment is no longer accessible. The FIA has agreed at this point, there is no potential sanction against Red Bull or potential changes to points or any of that other stuff. So don't even start going down that road. Red Bull have not been accused of anything formally by any team. There's been no protest filed. That's where we are. But what Red Bull has said is, well, we're also going to now voluntarily not use that device anymore to change the ride height. So now we have kind of one for one. We have McLaren with the rear wing thing saying we're not going to use the the potentially bad rear wing that nobody liked, and now we have Red Bull saying we're not going to use the device to change the ride height anymore. To me, I don't know that these cancel each other out, but this is F1. This is what you get when you don't have a spec series. You have teams that are pushing to see what the edge of the rules are, and that's where you live. And to me, if you want to have a balance of performance or a spec series, there are racing series that can give you that. But this has been in the DNA of F1 since it began in the championship at that race in Silverstone. This has always been in the DNA. All teams are looking for edges. That's why we love it. That's why we love in-season development, especially when it works, because that's what you're looking for. So to me, it's a giant nothing burger. I'm a McLaren fan. I'm sporting Lando stuff on it. I don't really care. Let's go racing and let's settle it there, is my opinion. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be ending up being a big deal, because even if Red Bull was using it before now, I mean, there doesn't seem like there's really any proof. They've already agreed that they're going to stop using it. There is a long history of, like you said, pushing the boundaries, bending the rules, maybe even trying to sneak in something that is illegal. And most of the time, they'll use it, and until they can no longer get away with it, they get caught, and then Formula One makes a rule that says, no, you can't do that. So, to me, it's maybe not directly equivalent to what McLaren was doing, because for McLaren, you could see this flexible wing actually in action during the race and potentially making a difference, and there are restrictions on flexible bodywork. So, but there's also restrictions on Parc Fermé in which you can adjust. And had they been using this device and adjusting that ride height during Parc Fermé conditions, it is technically against the rules. But I agree that even if they were using it, probably a slap on the wrist, like, okay, that was clever, don't do it anymore, type thing. I think that would be appropriate, because, like you said, that's what Formula One does. That's what teams have always done since the dawn of Formula One, is push the boundaries until you get caught.
Yeah, and the rules are there to tell you what you can't do, not necessarily to tell you what you can do. And I think when you always look at it through that prism, it makes a little more sense as to why these teams are always pushing the envelope a little bit. And the example I would give you, if you go back to 2017, the first year we got the bigger cars, right? Remember, we had that big almost like sign in it was this rectangular shape in the rear going right up to the rear wing. It looked like almost a billboard. That's where you would see teams put like the numbers and the flag of the driver and all that stuff. Do you remember in the middle of that season, I forget which team it was, but I think it was one of the teams in the back said, oh, the rules don't say you can't put a little fairing like halfway down that thing. And they showed up one weekend and there's this little like coat hanger fairing. And it was a cheap enough part, and the rules said it was okay the rules didn't say you couldn't put it there. As ugly as it was, and it was butt ugly, let's be honest with you. But literally, at the end of that season, every car and every team had a little coat hanger fairing on it to try to get that extra half a tenth or 3/100ths of a second or whatever the heck it was. So this is nothing new in this sport. Every team is looking for an edge. It's just a question of how successful you are, and look, every team also has a department whose job it is to literally scour those rules and to interpret it as the rules don't say we can't. So until they tell us we can't, we're going to. And to me, that's not cheating. I've seen a lot of this where they're saying, well, that team must be cheating, and Red Bull is cheating, or McLaren was cheating because of the rear wing thing. I don't think it's cheating. It's trying to find where the limit of the rules are, and that's inherent in the DNA of the sport. And if you have an issue with that, like I said, there are lots of other spec series that have balance of performance and stuff where you can't change anything that are all there for you. But if you're coming into F1, this is just part of it.
I think an F1 engineer, like, probably a big chunk of their job is going through the regulations, being like, where can we kind of bend the rules or squeeze something in here just to get that little extra performance? And they probably paid a boatload of money to be really good at exactly that.
Right. Yep. So anyway, this is where the story is as of today. Tomorrow is a new day. Who only knows where this story will go? It may come out that 4 other teams were doing this same trick, and now they're all going to admit to it. I don't know, but let's find out. This is what we know as of now. If the story does go anywhere, obviously we will try to continue to bring it to you. It's going to be harder for me to tweet from the track because the Wi-Fi gets stupid. But anyway, we'll see what I can do.
I was about to say, Andy will be on the ground. Do bring it to you live.
I'll try. I've had issues, especially during the sessions, of trying to get stuff out. But I will do. If I have to go to a place where I know there's good Wi-Fi, I will do that. Let's put it that way. But anyway, that will conclude the big catch-up. So now you are all caught up. So now we can actually turn our attention to the weekend. We're going to take a quick break, though. We've been at it for a minute. So we're going to re-rack. We're going to come back. We'll drop our green flag. We're going to preview the Circuit of the Americas racetrack itself in Austin. There's some new resurfacing that's been done, which is going to probably play havoc with our lap time predictions, I'm sure. We'll talk about the weather. Just what I've noticed from being down here so far, and it looks to be continuous as to what's going to happen. And then we will take our shot at the predictions game, and we'll try to see where we think this weekend is going to go. And we'll tell you when and where you can watch F1. It's going to be on a plethora of places this weekend, as ESPN and F1 TV are going to try to have this blasting all over the place. So we will let you know where and when you can find all of the sessions. So come on back, and we'll hop into it. Welcome back in. I'm on not the best of connections, so it's always a little weird when that red light comes on. When is it really on? But we found it. It's on. It's working. Welcome back in. This is Season 6, Episode 38 of the Outlap F1 Podcast. It's our 2024 US GP preview show. You've got Andy, and I'm along with Cody tonight. And we just caught you all up on the news, and now we're going to hop into the US GP weekend proper. We're going to get into our track facts brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. Cody, it's your time to shine, sir. Tell us about Circuit of the Americas.
Right, this weekend, finally, my favorite Grand Prix of the year, the one I've been to. It is the United States Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas, located in Austin, Texas, in the United States. Number of laps for this Grand Prix is 56. And the length of the circuit is 3.436 miles. That's 5.513 kilometers, and consists of 20 turns. Tire selection from Pirelli for this one is the same as last year. It's the C2, C3, and C4 tire compound. And the track characteristics are just slightly different than last year because of the resurfacing of part of the track to make it a little less bumpy. We're looking at a 4 out of 5 for traction, a 3 out of 5 for asphalt grip. We are now down to a 3 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, 4 out of 5 for track evolution, 4 out of 5 for tire stress, 3 out of 5 for braking, 4 out of 5 for lateral load, and a 4 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record for the US Grand Prix is still going to Valtteri Bottas set in 2019, and that was a 1 minute 32.029 seconds. I haven't been able to go faster under the current regulations. Same thing with the race lap record. That one was also set in 2019, but the race lap record goes to Charles Leclerc, set with Ferrari, and that was a 1 minute 36.169 seconds. Most wins at this track still goes to Lewis Hamilton with a whopping 5 wins here, followed by Max Verstappen, now up to 3, and then a 3-way tie for third place with 1 win apiece between Sebastian Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen, and Valtteri Bottas. Most constructor wins at this track is still going most for Mercedes at 6. Red Bull has been catching up over the last few years and is now up to 4 wins here. I don't know if they're going to make it to 5. We just kind of have to wait and see. And then we do have that 1 win for Ferrari that came from Kimi Raikkonen. What's the circuit like, Andy?
All right. Well, if the corners at COTA seem familiar, well, they certainly should be, because I think it tries to take the best parts of some other tracks and make it its own. Turns 3 through 6 will look very similar to Silverstone's high-speed run through Maggots and Beckett's or the S-curves at Suzuka, while turns 12 through 15 mimic Hockenheim's stadium section. Meanwhile, the uphill run into the wide turn 1, hey, everything is bigger in Texas, it's got to be, right? It's also known now as Big Red, has provided some fine overtaking action in the track's short life. I was watching some older races, and I remember Jenson Button having a field day going up a lot of the different parts of that turn 1 and pulling off some amazing overtakes there when he raced. As for the weather, it's going to be pretty much ideal conditions. Last year was ridiculously hot. We're going to get really lucky because the weekend after this is supposed to be back to being ridiculously hot. So for Friday, for tomorrow, sprint qualifying will have intervals of cloud and sunshine in the morning with more clouds later in the day, high of 83. So that's really good for this time of the year in Texas. Winds out of the east-southeast at 10 to 15, only 3% chance of rain. They're actually in drought conditions down here. So for Saturday, for the sprint race and the qualifying session for the full Grand Prix on Sunday, partly cloudy skies, a little bit warmer, high around 85. Winds out of the east at 5 to 10. Only a 5% chance of rain. There was talk of potentially being a 30 or 40% chance of rain. That has definitely faded out of the forecast as we've gotten closer to the race weekend. And as for Sunday, mainly sunny, high of 86, so the warmest of the 3 days. Winds again out of the east, 5 to 10. Only a 4% chance of rain. So again, we're going to not see weather be a huge factor. The winds will be down, which is very significant because the wind can usually play a lot of havoc here. As you mentioned, Cody, they have resurfaced a significant portion of the track, including the main straight. For the first time, that is the last bit from the original 2012 asphalt. So that is now all completely done. I saw it earlier today. It looks great. Very, very, very deep black on that part of the racetrack, but varying grip levels throughout the lap. So we're going to have to see kind of how everybody attacks this racetrack.
You're talking about how everything's bigger in Texas, and it made me think of the first time I went down there with you, that it only takes leaving the airport to realize that, because the expressways are huge and the speed limits are also huge.
Yes, and the traffic is bigger in Texas. It took a whole 5 minutes for me to remember what driving is like down here. I thought it was bad in Chicago. Woo, boy. But I've not had any close calls, knock on whatever, that we don't have any of that this weekend. And no encounters with a windshield yet. I was going to say no encounters with a Texas-sized rock like we experienced last year. So, but I put a tweet about this. This is the weekend where Andy learns to drive a truck, because I have a truck for a rental, because they literally were handing out any car or any vehicle to anybody there. The poor people in the San Antonio airport were literally out of cars. So it was like, you get this one, and this one just came in, and yeah, you can have that one. And nobody got their reservations. It was kind of hilarious because there's a lot going on down here this weekend. Not only is there an F1 race, there's a Sting concert tomorrow night at COTA. There's an Eminem concert on Saturday night at COTA. And there's a little thing called, the number one team, college football team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, playing a huge game in downtown Austin on Saturday night against the Georgia Bulldogs. So there's no room anywhere. It's going to be teeming with people all weekend. So you may have picked the year to skip. Let's put it that way from that perspective. But I mean, the energy is always like it is. It's been really good. It's been building. We're definitely going to see kind of how this all plays into an actual F1 weekend. But yeah, there's just a lot of people down here right now, myself included. All right. So we are going to take our stab at what we think is going to happen this weekend. It's our Choose Your Champion predictions game. I need to do a little bit of rallying. I think you won last time out. It's been a while. I have one of these times I'm actually going to redo the score and actually get us a scoreboard. I keep saying that, but one of these times I'll actually do it, but I didn't do it here. But we shall start, as we are always apt to do, with the pole sitter. And last year, he didn't set it in that golden hour But he had the golden hour lap a couple years ago. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. I saw F1 put a tweet out that says this lap has its own fan base. That is very true, by the way. But he's the defending pole sitter here. Interesting predictions. I like where we're going with both of this. Cody, what you got for pole sitter?
I still think McLaren is going to look really strong, probably for the rest of the season. I think that Lando Norris has run here very well in the past. We saw him start off the race taking the lead away from Charles Leclerc last year after qualifying second. And I believe that was because Verstappen's lap time got deleted. He was on for pole, potentially. But alas, I think that Norris runs really well here, and he's who I'm picking for pole sitter.
All right, very good. I got a feeling this is one of those tracks where Oscar Piastri kind of raises his hand and says, remember me? I'm still kind of here. I just don't know why I got that feeling. I think the car is going to be really strong. I think that's also going to be good. I was also reviewing the history at McLaren at this track. And before Lando last year, it's really not good. But this is a different year. It's a different McLaren car. All of that being said, I do think I'm going to say Oscar Piastri to get the pole. Just eking out over Lando Norris in the qualifying on Saturday afternoon. All right. And what do we think the lap time on that pole position is going to be? Cody, what's your thought?
I think we're going to be quite a bit faster than last year. That pole time last year was the 1:34.723. I think just from car development and then combining that with that some more of the track has been resurfaced. Yes, it is varying grip levels, but it is getting grippier, at least on the newly paved parts. And I think they're going to squeeze some more time out of that front straight. So I'm going all the way down to a 1:34.001.
All right, very good. I was thinking along the same lines as you, but I'm not quite as extreme. I do think it will be faster, just because of how much they've resurfaced the track, and they have really tried to get rid of the bumps. And just to provide some history, the land that COTA is sitting on is you would not build a racetrack on that type of land. They literally trucked in dirt from, I forget where it was, somewhere in the Houston area or something, but they had dump trucks and dump trucks of dirt that they tried to pound down to level it out and everything. And it worked for a couple of years, but because they get such a variability in temperatures here, like this is a real thing that happened. It went from 99 degrees here on Tuesday. Yesterday's low was in the 40s in the Fahrenheit scale. That's such a difference in temperature. So the ground does all this heaving and up and down, and it cracks, and it's really hot, and it's very dry. All of that just plays havoc with the track surface. So this is what they've kind of come up with to try to counter that, is they're just going to look at what the worst part of it is every year and resurface it. So now they've done the main straight. They've done the back straight again. This is like the fourth time they've done the back straight because of that, I do think you're going to see more grip, better lap time. Yep, exactly. To get rid of the bobbing and the weaving and the bouncing and the bumps. If they say there's a bump in there, Bobby Epstein's going to go out and try to hammer it down between Saturday and Sunday, I guarantee you. But anyway, I've got a lap time of 1:34.225 because I think it will be faster, but I'm not quite as fast as how you're going. But I'd like to see a 1:34.001. That'd be fun. All right. Mm-hmm. So we will move into our podium predictions on Sunday. It is a sprint weekend, but we were going to cover that in our prop bet. So traditional race on Sunday, last year's podium was Max Verstappen taking the win, Lando Norris coming in second after Lewis Hamilton got disqualified, and Carlos Sainz coming in third. Cody, what you got for a race prediction?
Wondering why my cats always find all the noisy toys that have been under the furniture forever. They always find it when we're doing the broadcast here. Anyway, for my podium, I'm going to fanboy a little bit here. I think Red Bull, at least according to what they've been saying, they have sorted out some of the issues with the car. They've found out some of what they've been doing wrong. Verstappen has sounded more optimistic lately, and he has been very successful here. I think even if he doesn't get the pole, I think Verstappen is going to be in a good position to fight for the win. So going full fanboy, I've got Max Verstappen taking the win, Lando Norris coming in second place, and then I've got Lewis Hamilton, another guy who does fantastic at this track. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, perhaps been on the podium last year. I do have him getting that podium this year with third place.
All right. Very good there. I've totally gone fanboy. If you went fanboy, I'm going total fanboy. And I'm going total fanboy with a twist because I've got Lando Norris taking the win. I've got Oscar Piastri coming in second. And I think this is where you're actually going to see those papaya rules finally get played. And it might just be one of those moments. So interesting to see. We'll have to see. McLaren are definitely the car of the moment. So let's see where that goes. But I also have Max Verstappen. I do think Red Bull's updates are going to help. I don't know if they're going to get them over the top yet because they've fallen a little bit, let's be honest. But let's see where this goes. They're putting a big chunk into this update. I do think it's going to work for them. I think they're smart people at Red Bull. I don't think they've forgotten how to win. I think that might set them up for better places like Brazil, Qatar, maybe Abu Dhabi. But I don't know that they're going to get it first time out. That's a big ask on a sprint weekend. But we have seen that work before. But I've got Norris taking the win, Piastri second, Verstappen third. All right. We will now move into our fastest lap and the driver. And this is another reason why they're getting rid of that point for fastest lap, because here we go. 2023 fastest driver point went to you, or it didn't even, I don't think he got a point. I think it went to Yuki Tsunoda, but it was a 138.139. So. Yeah, exactly. So Cody, what do you have for fastest lap and who do you have setting it?
I have Oscar Piastri setting the fastest lap. I think he's, as we were discussing earlier, you kind of have to be in a position to get the fastest lap, and I think he will be. I think probably Piastri, we'll get to this in a minute, I think he's going to finish just outside of the podium. He's probably going to have a pretty good gap to whoever's behind him and put him in a good position to take the pit stop and get that fastest lap. So I got it going to Piastri, and I got him doing it with a 1 minute 37.777.
All right, very good. I am consistent in my thoughts with you. I just have somebody different doing it. I do think you're going to see Charles Leclerc be just off the podium, and I think he's going to have that gap, and he's going to have that opportunity to come in, put the set of soft tires on, and go set fastest lap. So because of that, I'm taking Charles Leclerc to set the fastest lap. I do think it will be faster than last year, and we're close on lap time, too. So I got a 137.587 for my fastest lap time. All right. So for bonus picks, you have selected P4, P7, and P12. I like the spread amongst that. I'll go first here. I kind of gave this away. I've got Charles Leclerc coming in P4. I've got Carlos Sainz coming in P7 because I think it's going to be a big scrap between the Mercedes and the Ferraris just off the podium there. I think they're going to go at it really good here. And I think they're both fast. So very interesting to see where that goes. And I've got Franco Colapinto coming home in P12 for Williams. Not quite on points, but getting ever closer there. So, Cody, what you got for your bonus picks?
Well, I think Colapinto in 12 would be something he could be proud of on a weekend like this. I think that would be really good for him to finish 12. I've got, for fourth place, and I also kind of gave this away, my thoughts on this, I got Oscar Piastri coming in fourth, just off the podium. I've got Fernando Alonso coming in seventh, and I wasn't really thinking through that V-Carb seems to have fallen off a little bit lately, but I'm sticking to it. I've got Yuki Tsunoda coming in 12th.
All right, very good. And because it's a sprint weekend, we just decided to make our prop bet. Who's going to win the sprint race? It might have championship connotations or permutations for sure. So I'll go first on this one. I'm just going to be the total fanboy on this one. This is where I think Lando will win it. Even though he doesn't usually do really well in the sprints, but he's got to do it. So I'm hoping that that'll at least keep the championship going. So I've got Lando Norris taking the sprint. Cody, what you got?
I have the guy who does do really well in the sprints taking the sprint win here. Max Verstappen has won all of the sprint races so far this year, albeit that was much earlier in the season, the last time we had sprint races where that Red Bull looked a lot better. But even before this season, Max Verstappen has rocked most of the sprint races. So I think he is in a good position to take this one. And even if the McLaren turns out to be a stronger car, which it likely still is, I don't know if he gets a good getaway, if they'll have the time to take the race strategy into account and overtake him.
Yeah, I mean, historically where you want to be here, believe it or not, is P2. The pole sitter it's not guaranteed you're going to necessarily make it into turn one, and we know that Lando has had his issues with that. So if he's on pole, he's not going to necessarily be in the best spot. But with the resurfacing, does that change the whole net dynamic? I mean, this is all what's going to play out over the course of the weekend. So I don't really know how to really think about that, but I know historically you want to be in P2. That's you get the inside thing up that turn one, and you generally can convert that at least into leading the first couple laps, and then it's kind of on from there. But and there's always usually carnage somewhere in the first few corners here at COTA between either turn one or the S section. Somebody's probably going to have an issue. So you definitely want to be near the front to be out of all of that. You certainly don't want to be in the middle of that midfield where anything can sometimes happen. But all right, so where and when can you watch your F1 this weekend? ESPN has got wall-to-wall coverage, so does F1 TV, but the practice sessions are as follows. Practice 1 starts 1:25 p.m. Eastern. Do we have Eastern on this? Or do we have Central on this? Well, this is Eastern. Okay.
Oh, this is all Eastern time.
Okay, FP1, 1:25 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2. The sprint shootout will start 5:25 p.m. Eastern. That's also ESPN2. Saturday, the sprint race itself, 1:55 p.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN News and ESPN Plus. And the qualifying session is also, because there's a lot of college football on the ESPN family of networks. So 5:55 p.m. Eastern, ESPN News or ESPN Plus be your best bets there. F1 TV is also a great viable second option at 2 for that type of stuff. And for the race on Sunday, it will air on big ABC commercial-free coverage. That's a big deal in the United States. 3 p.m. Eastern. If you're tired of your NFL, and most people aren't, but come on over, watch some F1. I think it'll be a good time. If you want to watch your NFL and you don't care so much about the Sunday night game, the race will be re-aired twice, 7 o'clock on ESPN News, 7 p.m. Eastern, and then again at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. What I do love what ESPN does with the replays, even though they do put commercials in them, they stop and they start right where they left off. So you don't miss anything in the replay. So you do get a full race replay there. So that's actually a pretty good thing. All right. Well, needless to say, I'm excited. Myrtle's excited. Cody, I'm sure you're going to get excited and enjoy watching it from the perspective of having all your screens. I will try not to post too many pictures of cars going past.
No, that's okay. I love seeing the pictures of cars going past. I am excited. It's not often that I wish that the race was at the crack of dawn. This is one of those weekends, actually, because it just so happens that in the evening on Sunday, I have something going on that's kind of related to my upcoming wedding. And my fiance did not really like my jokes about that. Maybe we should just cancel that so I can watch the race. But I'm going to try. I hope that there's not, it's also not often that I wish for no safety cars. I hope there's no safety cars so that the race goes relatively quickly so I can actually watch it before I have to leave. But I'm a diehard fan, in case you couldn't tell. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and we will be back. We're probably going to record Monday night after I am back to Chicago, in order to kind of record where I know where everything will be, and two, so that I can actually get started on all of the laundry that is going to be needed as I try to reconnect with my regular life outside of doing this. But it looks like it's going to be an amazing weekend. I am excited for all of the on-track action. There may be more on-track, off-track drama that breaks over the course of the weekend. So I will, like I said, I will do my best to put out whatever I can from wherever I can do it. And just keep attuned to our stuff throughout the weekend. We'll be back to do a full recap of this race. And again, for Cody, it's been Andy. I'm excited, maybe. USGP weekend. Let's do this. And as always, folks, may all your laps be fast.